There are moments when you sit alone and wonder how you became this version of yourself. Not broken in an obvious way, but quietly worn down. You wake up, do what you have to do, and still feel like you're falling behind in life. You see others moving forward, achieving, becoming something, while you feel stuck, unnoticed, replaceable. You don't talk about it, because you don't want sympathy. And you don't ask for help, because you're not even sure what's wrong. You just carry this silent weight, questioning your value, your purpose, and whether you even matter as much as you once hoped you would. This feeling doesn't come from one big failure. It comes from 1,000 small moments where you started doubting yourself. If you've ever felt like that, this story is for you. Watch this video till the end, like it if it speaks to you, and subscribe, because what you hear next might change how you see yourself forever. You don't wake up one day and decide that you're worthless. It doesn't happen like that. It starts quietly. Almost invisibly. It starts with the small disappointments you tell yourself don't matter. The plans that didn't work. The effort that didn't pay off. The moments where you tried, but nothing changed. At first, you brush them aside. You say it's just a bad day. Just bad timing. Just one mistake. But over time, those moments don't disappear. They stack up. And slowly, without you realizing it, they begin to speak for you. You stop saying, "This didn't work." You start saying, "I didn't work." That's how self-doubt becomes dangerous. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It waits until you're tired, until you're alone, until you're already questioning yourself. Then it starts rewriting your story. Every setback becomes proof. Every delay becomes evidence. Every struggle becomes a label. And before you know it, you're no longer judging situations. You're judging yourself. You begin to confuse a temporary phase with a permanent truth. You take a chapter of your life and call it the whole book. You forget that growth is messy, uneven, and slow. You forget that struggle is not a verdict, it's a process. But self-doubt doesn't care about context. It wants control. And it takes it by turning your inner voice against you. Now, even when nothing goes wrong, you're already expecting failure. Even when you try, you're half convinced it won't matter. You start holding back, not because you can't move forward, but because you've quietly decided that maybe you're not meant to. That's when self-doubt stops being a feeling and becomes an identity. But here's the truth you need to face. Feeling behind does not mean you are broken. Struggling does not mean you are incapable. Doubting yourself does not mean you lack value. It means you're human, moving through something difficult without the clarity you wish you had. The moment you recognize that your inner voice has been shaped by disappointment, not truth, is the moment its power starts to weaken. You are not the sum of what didn't work out. You are not defined by the moments that tested you. You are still in the middle of becoming. And this story is not finished yet. You don't notice it at first. It doesn't arrive loud or violent. It slips in quietly, every time you look sideways at someone else's life and feel something inside you shrink. You scroll, you listen, you compare. And suddenly, what you have feels smaller. What you are feels late. Not because your life is broken, but because someone else looks ahead of you. That's the damage of comparison. It doesn't motivate you. It erodes you. You start measuring your worth with timelines that were never meant for you. You tell yourself you should be further, stronger, more successful by now. And without realizing it, you turn your own progress into a disappointment. Peace disappears first. Then confidence. Then clarity. You stop asking what you actually want. You start chasing what looks impressive on the outside. And the more you compare, the more disconnected you feel from your own path. Here's the truth most people never sit with: your pain isn't coming from who you are. It's coming from who you think you should have become by now. That imagined version of you, faster, richer, louder, becomes a shadow that follows you everywhere. And no matter how much you grow, it keeps moving forward, staying just out of reach. Comparison never shows you the full story. It only shows highlights, outcomes, moments, never the fear, the delay, the cost. So you punish yourself using incomplete information. But the moment you stop asking, why am I not there yet? And start asking, what am I building right now? Something shifts. Your life stops feeling late. It starts feeling intentional. You realize your journey isn't behind, it's just different. And for the first time in a long while, you breathe without measuring yourself against someone else's pace. That's when clarity returns. Not because you're ahead, but because you're finally standing where you are, without apology. You wake up already judging yourself. Before the day even begins, your mind scans for what's wrong, the hesitation in your voice, the mistake you made before, the part of you that still isn't fixed. And every flaw feels like evidence. Proof that you're not ready. Proof that you're behind. Proof that if people really saw you, they'd know you don't deserve what you want. That belief digs deep. You don't just see imperfections, you become them. Your weakness stops being something you have and turns into something you are. So you hold back. You stay quiet when you want to speak. You delay opportunities, not because you lack ability, but because you think you lack permission. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that success belongs to the polished, the confident, the unshaken. That if you struggle, it means you're unqualified. That flaws are warnings, not invitations to grow. And every time you fail or fall short, the same voice returns, see? This is why you don't get to have more. But pause for a moment. Look closer at that logic. If flaws were proof of failure, no one would ever move forward. If imperfection disqualified you, growth wouldn't exist. You wouldn't exist. The truth is, your flaws don't block your path, your interpretation of them does. You treat uncertainty like a verdict. You treat fear like a final answer. You treat learning as if it's a sentence instead of a process. What if the things you're ashamed of aren't signs to stop, but signs you're still becoming? What if the cracks aren't exposing weakness, but movement? Every person you admire carries unfinished parts. They just didn't let those parts decide their worth. The moment you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? The weight shifts. You don't suddenly become perfect. You become honest. And honesty is stronger than perfection ever was. Your flaws were never proof that you're failing. They're proof that you're human, and still in motion. And once you stop treating them like enemies, they stop controlling where you're allowed to go. You don't feel broken all at once. It creeps in quietly, after enough moments where things didn't go the way you hoped. After enough nights wondering why something inside you never feels fully repaired. You start to believe there's damage in you that shouldn't exist. Something that makes life heavier for you than for others. Something you keep trying to hide, fix, or outrun. So you carry shame instead of curiosity. You label parts of yourself as failures without ever asking what they survived. You look at your struggles and assume they're proof that you're behind, delayed, or defective. But what if that's not the full story? What if the very things you call broken were shaped under pressure, not neglect? What if they exist because you adapted, endured, and kept going when stopping would have been easier? Pain has a way of rewiring you. It sharpens awareness. It forces you to notice details others miss. It builds depth where comfort never could. Yet you were taught to see struggle as damage. To see scars as mistakes. To believe that if something hurt you, it must have ruined you. So you fight against your own history. You wish parts of yourself away. You imagine a cleaner version of you that never went through what you went through. But growth doesn't come from erasing the past. It comes from understanding it. The cracks you focus on might be openings. The heaviness you carry might be strength still learning how to move. The sensitivity you try to shut down might be perception you haven't learned to trust yet. Not everything painful is pointless. Some experiences don't explain themselves immediately. They wait until you're ready to see differently. And when you do, the story changes. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did this shape in me?" That shift matters. Because the moment you replace shame with curiosity, you reclaim power. You stop seeing yourself as damaged goods and start seeing yourself as someone in process. Nothing about you is wasted. Not the mistakes. Not the delays. Not the parts that still feel tender. They're not evidence of what went wrong. They're evidence of what was built under pressure. And one day, you'll realize this wasn't about fixing yourself at all. It was about finally understanding that what felt broken was quietly preparing you to become someone deeper, stronger, and more awake than you ever expected. You stare at yourself and think you should already be somewhere else. You measure your progress against invisible deadlines, milestones you never agreed to. And the weight of that judgment presses down on your chest, making every step feel heavier than it should. It's easy to forget that life is not a single moment. You take one season, a failure, a delay, a struggle, and you declare it your whole story. You tell yourself that because things aren't perfect now, you must be falling behind, broken, or inadequate. And in that assumption, you punish yourself before the journey is even complete. You close doors that are meant to open slowly. You silence growth that is still taking shape. You overlook the small, quiet victories because they don't fit the image you imagined for yourself. But the truth is, one chapter does not define the whole book. Your struggles today are not verdicts, they are preparation. Your mistakes are not failures, they are lessons in disguise. And the pace you move at is not a reflection of your worth. When you stop judging yourself too early, you begin to see differently. You notice the effort, the resilience, the tiny steps that keep adding up. You start to recognize that patience is not waiting, it's trusting the process you're in. You begin to treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer someone else in your shoes. Your story is still unfolding. The pieces that feel incomplete are not signs of defeat. They are the foundation for what is coming next. And the moment you release that harsh judgment, you step into a space where growth feels natural, not forced. You realize you are exactly where you need to be, even if the destination is not yet in sight. You watch the world celebrate the loud, the flashy, the visible. Everywhere you turn, success is measured in numbers, applause, and recognition. And you start to wonder if you even matter when your work, your effort, your care goes unnoticed. You begin to believe that if no one sees it, it isn't valuable. You discount the small victories, the moments where you quietly hold space, help someone, or keep going when no one is watching. You measure yourself against the spotlight, forgetting that most of life's true impact happens in the shadows. And slowly, that belief eats away at you. You feel invisible, irrelevant, like your contribution is too small to matter. You question whether the patience, persistence, and care you pour in daily will ever amount to anything. But here's the truth you rarely hear: value doesn't need an audience. The ripple you create quietly can change someone's day, someone's life, or even the course of their story. Not all victories are loud, not all change is seen. Sometimes, the strongest foundations are invisible to those who don't know how to look. You begin to realize that what you do, even when unseen, shapes more than you think. The late nights, the unseen effort, the acts of kindness you think are too small, they matter. They matter because they persist, because they endure, because they are rooted in purpose, not applause. Your worth is not tied to recognition. It never was. And when you finally see that, the quiet power you've been carrying all along becomes undeniable. Even if no one notices, even if no one applauds, your presence, your work, your life leaves a mark that is real, lasting, and profoundly necessary. You have spent years waging war against yourself. Every flaw, every choice you regret, every part of you that didn't fit the image you hoped for, you pushed it away, buried it, fought it with everything you had. And in that struggle, you carried a quiet exhaustion that no one could see, a pain that whispered you were unworthy simply for being who you are. You learned to hate the parts of yourself that felt heavy, awkward, or broken. You called them mistakes, weaknesses, imperfections. You believed if you could just erase them, hide them, or fix them, life would finally make sense. But the harder you fought, the more they clung to you, shaping your identity without your permission. Then one day, slowly, something shifted. You started to pause, to look at yourself without immediate judgment. You began to ask why you reacted this way, why you carried this weight, why these scars exist. And in that quiet questioning, the first cracks of understanding appeared. You realized that the parts you hated were not enemies. They were signals, lessons, survival tools that got you through the storms you didn't think you could survive. They were proof that you endured, that you learned, that you lived, even when it hurt. And with that realization comes something heavy, powerful, and freeing: respect. Not admiration, not pride, but recognition of the truth, that everything inside you, even the parts you rejected, contributed to the person you are becoming. You stop fighting. You stop denying. You stop shrinking. And in that acceptance, you find strength. The parts you once loathed become your teachers, your allies, your proof that resilience is not perfection but honesty. You understand now, hating yourself never built you up, but embracing yourself, fully, unflinchingly, can. You are not weakened by what you once despised, you are empowered. You have spent so long measuring yourself against invisible standards, counting every flaw as proof that you aren't enough. Every failure felt like a verdict, every success barely a pause before the next impossible expectation. And through it all, you carried a quiet, gnawing emptiness, believing that the world's approval was the only thing that could fill it. You worked tirelessly to fix, to prove, to chase something just out of reach, and in the process, you forgot to ask the one question that mattered most: what if I am enough, simply as I am? What if my worth isn't a scoreboard to tally, but a quiet truth to feel? The shift doesn't happen all at once. It begins in moments when you pause and notice that your value was never dependent on the applause you never received. It grows as you see that your effort, your struggles, your choices, even your flaws, carry their own weight of meaning. You start to realize that being enough doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having everything figured out or always hitting every mark. Being enough means you are whole, even in your incompleteness, capable even in your vulnerability. And in that realization, a calm power rises inside you. You no longer need to chase validation or fight for recognition. You see yourself clearly, without judgment, without pretense, without the exhausting need to earn approval. You understand now that you have always been enough, that your presence, your journey, your story, is more than worthy simply because it exists. You have spent years hiding pieces of yourself, tucking away the parts you believed were too heavy, too ugly, too broken to show. Every scar, every misstep, every flaw felt like a mark of shame, a secret you had to carry alone. And in carrying them, you learned to shrink, to quiet yourself, to pretend that perfection was your identity. But what if those pieces weren't weaknesses at all? What if the cracks you've tried to hide were not a burden, but a map of your journey, proof of every battle you survived, every fear you faced, every moment you kept going when nothing inside you wanted to? You begin to see that carrying your imperfections doesn't mean falling behind. It doesn't make you less deserving of love, respect, or peace. It means you are real. It means you are human. It means you are alive in a way that no flawless mask could ever capture. And as this truth settles quietly inside you, something shifts. You hold yourself with gentleness instead of judgment. You no longer hide. You no longer apologize for being incomplete. You carry your imperfections like a quiet crown, a testament to the life you've lived and the strength you've earned. And for the first time, you feel whole, simply as you are.